Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a busy week. We've done some work on our Howa project. I'm super excited with how she came out. We have put a scope base on, we've put mount scope rings on, and we've also chosen an optic. We've gone for the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 in 3 to 15. As I've said before, I've shot out to 1.4 kilometers with less than 15 magnification, so that's plenty for what I want to be doing, and it's plenty for most people actually. We had a little hiccup with regards to setting up the scope base. I'll jump into that sort of midway through the video just so we can help anyone if they get stuck on that. But without further ado, let's roll the intro and get into the build. So let's jump into setting up this scope base. Hang on, scope base required. First of all, let's run through some things we're going to need. Most important thing is your scope base. This is a high rail from MDT for the Howa 1500, so that's there with its supplied bolts that we need. We have a torque wrench already pre-set up to 25 inch-pounds of torque, a tiny little flat screwdriver, make sure you have the right size, the Vortex bubble level, some extremely high quality MDT rings. What's really cool about these, they also have a little bubble level in. And then obviously the optic will be running on this particular build. We will be running the Viper Gen 2 PST in 3 to 15. First things first, let's make some space. Okay, first of all, you're going to need your tiny little screwdriver. So let's make sure we get this one out, and that's out too. Right, cool. So now that we have all 4 of the screws out, what I like to do is run pipe cleaner through that just to make sure there's no unnecessary grease in. So I dip that in some degreaser, and I've actually put some in a spray bottle which I'm spraying on to some pipe cleaner, and we'll be just running this through the holes just to make sure we get them free of any grease. Actually, this is a great example of why we're doing this. If you look very closely, there is some debris in that hole that looks to be machining debris. Let me see if I can show you guys this. Can you see that? Look at that. Inside that hole, there's a tiny bit of machining stuff that's been left over. So we need to make a plan to get that out of there. There we go guys, that was a bit of a mission, but we seem to have cleared the rifle from all the debris that was in that hole. Now what I like to do is do the same with the 4 screws that have come with the scope base. So, scope base has a little recoil lug on the scope base, which you can see right there. It goes on like so. Okay, that already looks pretty cool. So as I said, today we're not going to be putting Loctite on that. I will be using the torque wrench and torque them down to about 20 inch-pounds of torque. Okay, so let's start by just indexing all the screws. So now that we have them all sort of just very close to snug, I'm going to be pushing forward on the scope base to make sure that this little recoil lug here is pushing firmly against the action. So basically what that means is as this rifle recoils and moves back, there's an immediate point of contact there so we don't have any shift. It also is going to help me straighten this out by pushing it up against that firmly, and then we'll start snugging these guys down. Yep, everything's good. So now we're going to start torquing them down. Let's start at the back. As I say, we're pushing forward as we're doing this. Right, so we have these basically snugged up. Now we're just going to turn them until they hit their final torque setting. One thing that's important to denote that while we're actually looking at the rifle from this angle, and one of the biggest reasons why we'll be moving over into a chassis system is if I hold the rifle like this and you look at the spacing on each side of this barrel, there's a significant difference between that side of the barrel against this synthetic rubbery stock. Okay, so now that we have the scope base mounted, we will be bringing over the optic and setting that up. So let's put the rifle down to one side and start working with our optic. Let's leave the sunshade out. We'll definitely be adding the sunshade to the mix too. The reason for the sunshade, while we're on the subject, is if my scope ends here, this is the hottest section of the barrel, basically this section. There's a lot of heat that rises up from that, and if your scope is this much shorter, there's that much more heat you have to look through, which translates into mirage downrange. And every single bit of mirage that you don't have to look through is an advantage. Okay, let's get these set up. So first things first, look at these rings. How cool does that look? What's also nice about these, they're QD, so they just they'll be quite easy to take on and off and maybe use on multiple rifles. More on the multiple rifle setup later. So first, what we want to do, we want to make sure we have the one with the bubble level at the back, because it wouldn't help you very much if it was facing forward and you couldn't see it. So bubble level option on the back. So that one's going to go over there. Oops. That one's going to go over there. Yeah, this one is going to sit like that, so that we have the QD on our left hand to operate while we're operating the bolt on and the trigger with our right hand. Let's get these all loosened up so we can sit the scope inside them. At this point in the video, we shall now do a short time lapse. And then we'll snug a few bolts down. So we're going to forward this a little bit. Now that we have the position how far these mounts need to be apart to fit in on the indexing spaces on the Picatinny rail, we can recheck our level and then snug everything down on this optic. I sometimes find it's way easier to add these now. Right, so now that the bubble level and everything is installed, we can simply bring the rifle back over, pop this into position, and securely fasten these nice QD rings. So what we're going to do now is just to give them a little bit of extra snugness beyond hand tied. Not much at all. And that should do it. What we can do now is add the sunshade. Increases your cool factor while being very functional at the same time. Dust caps, which are very nice. And this helps keep your whole system clean. Simply pop your bolt back. You know everything is safe. And bolt back. We had a little hiccup during this bolt, which you should have noticed in the previous little clip. You would have seen that I was running the bolt and closing it, but it got stuck sort of in that position. It wasn't dropping all the way. The firing pin was going off, but it wasn't closing. And what actually ended up happening is that there's four screws to secure the scope base to the action. And one of those screws are slightly too long, and it was actually catching the face of the bolt on the top edge. And that was causing the bolt not to close all the way. It's a really easy fix though. And all I did was I sanded it down a little bit with my Dremel. You can use sandpaper too, but it's gonna take a while. So yeah, a Dremel is a nice little tool to have for jobs like these that you need to do really quickly. Anyway, join us next time for the follow-up video, which will be dropping it into a chassis and comparing it to my bad lady over here to my left. And I'm super excited to share that with you guys. Thanks for joining me on this journey. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe, share it with your mates. If you're watching on Facebook, like the channel. Yeah, I look forward to sharing this journey with you guys.